Good morning, sir.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, good morning. Sir, it's really nice to see you again.
Same here, same here.
Sir, with your due permission, shall we start our session?
Yeah, of course. Yes, yes.
Information is the oil of the 21st century, and analytics is its combustion engine. In God we trust, but for all others, we must bring data. Without data, you must be an ordinary person with just an opinion. I think these words are rightly said by Mr. William Edwards Deming. A very warm good morning to all of you present here. I, Deepti Shastri Gupta, along with my fellow colleagues, Dr. Mansi Kukreja and Dr. Neha Sahu, are feeling extremely delighted in welcoming all of you on this STTP, online STTP organized by IBMR IPS Academy on Financial Analytics. A very good morning to our resource person of the day, Dr. Prabhat Pankaj. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you.
And before we begin the session, I would like to introduce our participants also. Sir, we are having participation from the entire country. We are having participants from West Bengal, Maharashtra, Pune, Bangalore, Northern India, Rajasthan. So, and our participants are majorly academicians, industry, from industry, as well as research scholars. And participants, we are having resource person as Dr. Prabhat Pankaj. He is Director and Professor of Jaipur Institute of Management, Jaipur. He is a postgraduate in economics and a PhD in applied economics as well. He has been teaching economics at postgraduate and undergraduate level for about 23 years in the universities and B schools in India as well as abroad. Dr. Pankaj has received training in natural resource and environmental economics from South Asia Network of Development and Environmental Economies, which is SANDE, and World Bank Institute. He has also worked as an economic consultant to the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Royal Government of Bhutan on WTO issues, and also he has represented the Royal Government of Bhutan in UNESCAP while meeting in post-Canton agenda in Bangkok. Also, Dr. Pankaj is also an listed IBM expert mentor on SPSS. So once again, with the core of our hearts, IBMR IPS Academy welcomes Dr. Prabhat Pankaj.
Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Yeah, so very good morning, Dr. Deepti, Dr. Neha, Dr. Mansi, and all the participants from all over the country. It was a pleasure to be there in the first program that you conducted, and you have been conducting very successful program. So about 100 participants is not a small thing to do. So my appreciation to your institute, your management, to everyone. This is one area which is very important, and you are doing a great service by conducting such workshops here. So to start with, probably this time also, I guess that there will be a mixed batch in the sense that some of them must be the beginners, some of them must be a bit of learner of SPSS, and some must be quite an expert in their own domain. Is it so, Dr. Deepti?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are having beginners, experts, all okay. Representation. Yes.
Yeah, fine. So let me start with let me start with the scratch. So I'm going to share one PPT with you, and then we'll start. So that's how I generally do. So I'm going to start with the kind of conceptualizing a study for all of you. So the study, suppose, this is how we begin. We frame the topic, we start doing some research, we do our PhD, we frame research questions, we collect data. So this is how all of us begin. So my session is not about going into the detail of how you frame the questions and all. If there is some other occasion, I can talk about those things also, how to frame a good question, how to frame a good questionnaire. So these are some different topics altogether. So today I'm going to focus more on how you use the SPSS for data analysis once the data is in your hand. But I'm going to take you through a little bit the process, how you collect the data and how you put it in the SPSS, and then you start analyzing. So this is just an example I'm presenting in front of you. So if the study is about the factors affecting consumer choice of a product, and as a researcher, you have considered a couple of factors which you think that is likely to affect the choice of a product. So for example, income, you have taken gender, education, occupation, age. So there may be many other factors, but I have taken only 5 of it for your clarity's sake. And the research question you are working on is that, is there a significant relationship between income and choice, given the gender, education, and age of the respondent? So you're taking all these other factors as given, and then you try to establish the relationship between income and the choice. And if you are able to do that, you have certain implications of this research. The kind of questionnaires that you're going to make to collect the data will be based on the research question you have framed and also the variables that you have considered, right? So if you ask me about the questions to be framed in the questionnaire for collection of the data, I will say that your number of questions that you are asking must be equal to the number of variables or the aspects that you want to research. So it should not be vague. No question should be asked which is vague, in the sense that you're not going to use it in your research. So all the questions that you are asking in the question, the efficient questionnaire is the one where each questions that you are asking in the questionnaire gets converted into a data, and then you use that data either as a variable or as a support mechanism. So that's the point so you have to ask question to yourself with each question that you are asking. How am I going to use this data? What kind of data I will get if I ask this question? So something of this sort. So I have put in name of the respondent. The name of the respondent is not going to be used in this research. So as a researcher, you can leave this question. But there can be many other reasons why you need the name of the respondent. One reason could be that you want to identify your questionnaires, who has actually given the question. Second, your guide may be, or there is a requirement for authenticating your questionnaires, that you have actually collected the questionnaire in an authentic way. So probably your guide will say, okay, you put the name of the respondent also, because that authenticates your questionnaire. So something of this. But if you are an independent researcher and there is no such requirement, then in that case, there is no need for asking the name of the respondent, because the moment you ask these kind of personal questions, which is related to the name of the respondent or something like income of the respondent, this might reduce the chances of getting the responses. So your response rate will go down. So that's a different issue altogether. So, but here, for the sake of understanding, because I'm going to also tell you how the name of the respondent can be entered in the SPSS, that's why I've kept this question. The second is age of the respondent. Now, there will be 2 different ways to ask the age of the respondent. It depends on what kind of research or what kind of analysis you're proposing. One is you straight away ask the question, what is your age? And then the respondent will say 30 years, 32 years, 50 years, something of this sort. Second is that, you give them a bracket of age, that do you belong to, 15 to 25, and then 26 to 40, and then 41 to 60, something of this sort. So, the moment you change the way you ask the age in these 2 categories, the type of data changes. Because in the first instance, when you are asking the age straight away, you have a continuous data. And then in the second instance, when you're asking the age in group-wise response, then you have a different type of data. We'll talk about that in a while in detail. How does it matter to look at the type of the data, because if you are collecting the data in the second format, then you cannot do certain analysis later on if you want to establish something. So it entirely depends on what tools that you are going to pick up that will suit which data. So you have to be very careful at this stage, because later on, sometimes the researchers get confused. They collect some type of data and then they wanted some other tools to be used, and they actually fall into trouble and because they do not match. So you have to be very careful, and I'll throw some light on that aspect in a while. So you have the third question is gender. So gender is male, female these days. You also, if you are gender sensitive or inclusive people, or if your population is such that you can also add one more gender, that is called the transgender or something like that. But generally we go for female, male. So I have coded it female as 0, male is 1. Coding is good in SPSS because the more coding you do for the different aspects that you are collecting the data for, it becomes easier for more quantitative analysis. So for SPSS, recommended that when you are talking about different kind of different kind of categories of data, you should code it, like occupation. So I've taken 3 occupation here: agriculture, service, business. So I'm saying agriculture as 1, service 2, business 3, something of this sort. Income, again, the same question. So question here asked is rupees in month. So you are asking the straightaway question that what is your income per month in rupees? So somebody will say 40,000, somebody will say 50,000. So it's a continuous kind of data that you will have. But you also have the choice of asking income bracket. So like the age I discussed. So these two will be 2 different kind of data. So we'll understand that in a while. Choice for the product. So this is what my interest is, that I want to know how the choice for this product is affected by the income or maybe other factors. I'm using the Likert scale. It's a very famous scale that is used, is very much comparable, because many studies have been conducted on Likert scale, but this is not the only scale that is used in the research. So there are more advancements in the research, and Likert scale has got its own limitations. So we'll discuss those limitations in a while. What is the limitation of Likert scale? But the nature of Likert scale is that it divides the options into 2 categories, 2 subcategories, one on the higher side, on the lower side, and there is a neutral in between. Say, for example, there is a 5 categories that will be made in Likert scale. So we start with I have no choice. So it expands from no choice to the great choice. So from the poorest to the highest, something of this sort. And the middle one is going to be a neutral one. So I have no choice for the product at all. So let's say 1. I have little choice, so the choice is little better. So 2. I'm neutral towards the product. 3. So I have choice, I don't have choice. I can go both ways. 3rd is I have good choice for the product. So it's a strong preference. I'm demonstrating, so I'll say okay 4. And then I have a great choice. So it's the fantastic. So this person is revealing his choice in a big way. So 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see that 3 is the dividing line, and below 3 is the lower choices or no choices, and above 3 is the higher choices and great choices. So this is how the Likert scale is formed. So we have all these kind of data with us. So next, what you do is that you go to the respondent, you hand over this questionnaire to them, and you want them to respond. So there are 2 ways you do it. One is that you send the questionnaire and ask them to get back to you with the response written on the questionnaire. That's one way. It's called without the enumerator involved into it. Second is that you have the enumerators who ask these questions directly and fill it. The filling is done by the enumerator, not by the respondent, right? So the respondent will always simply respond to the question that you are going to ask. But so there are advantages and disadvantages of both. So in the second form, of course, it's better because enumerators understands the question, the intention behind the questions very well. There are some complicated questions, and if you have not framed those questions properly, then the respondent will confuse and will not give you the right answer. But the difficulty in the second one is that you you have to have a lot of time, you have to have more people to do it. So the rate of response, will be very costly for you in the second part. The first part is not so costly because you just have to send the questionnaires, but the rate of response in the first part may not be very high. So, there is a trade-off between the two. It also depends on what kind of research you do. So if we meet sometime, to discuss all these aspects, we can talk about that. But so I'm going to take you to the SPSS window now. So this is your SPSS window, typical window, which looks like, kind of Excel window. So, and then those who are not very familiar, look at my cursor where it is going. So at the down side or bottom left, if you see, there is a data view, which is already clicked. So this is the data view in front of you. And there is another view, which is called the variable view. So if you click the variable view, you will get this kind of window, right? So SPSS has got two kind of, window for you. So first is data view, another is a variable view. So here in variable view, you have the name, type, and all kinds of things written over here. And in data view, you can see here, var. That means these are the variables. And on the left-hand side, if you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, these are called the cases. Cases means, number one means one case means one questionnaire, one complete questionnaire. So if you have handed this questionnaire to respondent 1, then the entire entry of that respondent 1 will go in case 1. So if you have filled in 100 cases, that means you have n is equal to 100. That means you have 100 respondents. So that's how it works. So it is advisable that, when you are taking the questionnaire for data entry, after it gets filled in, then you put a number on that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And if you have 100 questionnaires filled in, then you have 1 to 100. So it is in front of you. So later on, you won't confuse which case is what. So if you have entered the first case, then you just mark a tick over there. Okay, I have already completed this questionnaire. Now I'm going to the case number 2. And at any point of time, if you have to go back and see whether the entry was right, wrong, was there any problem, so it will be easier for you to do that. But how you enter the data is that, we start entering the data from the variable view. So that is the best way to do it. So I will suggest that you should start with the variable view for entering the data. So what are the variables that you have? So let me just recall all those variables and write down the variables for me. So first variable is name, second is age, third is gender, fourth is occupation, fifth is income, and sixth is choice. So these are the variables that I have. So I know these variables. So the first variable is name. So I will just write name over here. So name is the name of my variable. So, first I will just frame the variable, and then I'll go by one column wise. So second is age. So I will say age. It's not very difficult to make out this variable. Gender. So I'll say gender. There may be some complicated variable name, which you may have to generate, but it has to be one single syllable. So it can be a word plus alphanumeric variable as well, or you can use hashtag, you can use underscore to clarify the variable, something of the sort. You can do that. So, but it has to be one single syllable, right? So gender, and then occupation. Occupation is my third variable. Then I have income is my fourth variable, and then choice is my fifth variable, sixth variable. So, I have 6 questions in my questionnaire, and I have created 6 variables over here. So here, the second column is about the type of the variable. So name is not a numeric variable. So I will have to change it. So if you click this, you will get a small button over here. You can see this. And if you click this button, you will have all the choices in front of you. So you have to click string, because all these alphanumeric variables are called the string variables. So I have clicked string and said OK. So I have defined the type, because if I do not change this, then you cannot actually write over there. It will not take, the spaces will not take it. If you leave it as numeric, then spaces will not take names over there. So you have to convert it into string. And then in the analysis also, it figures somewhere. So numeric, because age is a numeric variable. I'm asking age in the form of simple number. So gender, you have a choice here. You can keep it a string or you can keep it numeric. When you are coding it, then it becomes numeric. So if you're keeping it numeric, then you will have to allow the code to be entered over here. So we'll see how the code is entered. But you can enter gender as a string variable also, and then later on convert it into the codes. That also is possible. But I'm keeping it numeric because it allows a lot of flexibility. Occupation, also I'm keeping numeric because I'm going to code it. Income is, of course, a numeric variable. Choice is, again, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I'll keep it numeric, but these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 have to be defined. So we'll do that in a while. Now the next column is the width. Width is not of much significance. 8 means the 8 character. So, if you have more character, then, you can increase the number, otherwise not. Decimal, of course, string variables will have 0 decimal. In age, would you like to have decimal? Something like 20.5 years. If you are not using that, then make it 0. So, it will take only number of years, like 50, 60, 62, something like that. There is nothing after decimal. In gender also, there is nothing after decimal. It's going to be 0 and 1. We know, so occupation also, I don't want any decimal point, but decimal is important because in many data, you have the decimal, which is very important, like the stock market data or maybe rainfall data. There may be several data where sales data, you would like to have figures after decimal, so decimal is important. Income, here again, I don't want income, of course you can have decimal, but we don't want any decimal over here. So no decimal over here, right? Label is your opportunity to expand upon the definition of these variables. For example, name. So you can have the freedom of writing name of the respondents, right? So, you can write as much as you, because this is going to be reflected in the analysis as well. So this gives clarity to your variable. So age, for example, age of the respondent. Gender, so gender, so I'm not doing that. If you want, you can do that. Occupation. Oh, here income. So it's good to use label, because in income, you can write something like income in rupees per month. So it's a very specific variable that you have created. So income can be annual, or income can be in different denominators. So you have to specify that it's in rupees per month. Choice. Choice of product. So this is express choice that you have expressed. Now we come to value. So name does not have any value, age does not have any value, gender has got 2 values. So one is 0, another is 1. So we will have to click this button, small button, and then this is the window that will appear, and you can write 0, and then you can say, let's say, female, and then 1, let's say male. So these are the 2 categories you would like to put. So 0, 1. You have the choices. It does not necessarily have to be 0 as female. So it can be 1 as female, 2 as male, or maybe 1 as female, 2 as male, something of this sort. So any labeling you want to do, you can do that. So I've entered the 2 values over here. The occupation. Now occupation has got three values. So one is agriculture. 2 was service. and 3 was business. So you can enter as many values as you want. Income does not have a value. Choice has got 5 values. So this is very important. So you have to write level 1, not at all. So you can also write full sentence as we have written in the choice variable, but just for the sake of saving some time, I'm just writing not at all. 2 is somewhat. 3 is so-so or neutral. 4 is very much, and the 5 is the highest, so extremely. So this is the scale that we are using. So we'll say okay. So these are the 5 scales. Now missing. Missing variable has a special significance here. So name doesn't matter, but in the age, if you have some missing, then you can actually enter some random reasons for the missing, and then you can utilize those for your study, because all missings are not random in nature. There is a specific reasons also behind the missing, and that's why it requires to be analyzed. So it depends on the study that you do. If you have those kind of study, for example, I keep on giving this example. You're doing a study on, let's say, whether sex education should be compulsory in the school or not, and you are asking this question to parents. So when you ask this parent, do you think that sex education should be allowed in the school? The parents were very shy. They didn't want to answer this question, right? So you have a missing variable here because you did not get the response, but there is a reason behind the missing. The reason is that the shyness of the parent. So you may like to analyze how many parents are still feel shy to ask these questions. That can be one reason that you would like to analyze. Another could be, the parents got angry and said that, how dare you ask this kind of questions? We never talk about these kind of things. These are very sensitive things. So, this is an information that the parents got angry, but apparently your information is missing because you didn't get any response from that. So if you want to analyze those kind of, inferences or reasons which you think that important for the study, then you can use this opportunity. For example, so you have this opportunity of entering some, numbers. So you say discrete numbers you have to put in for one single reason. Say, for example, I'm putting 9999. The number should be such that it does not appear anywhere in the data, so that there is no class and no problem for SPSS to read this. So any unique number like 999 can work, or maybe 111 can work, or something of this sort. So you have the opportunity to enter three such random, regions over here. Say, for example, if I use 99 and then I use 999, there are 2 regions I'm entering here, and then I have to go to the values and define these 2 numbers. So we'll say, okay, 99 is parents felt shy, and 999 is parents felt angry, right? So these will appear in your analysis, right? So that makes the study very, very good and profound. So you can make use of this, but there are ways to do the missing item in continuous variable. Like if some age are missing, then you can use the arithmetic mean of that whole series as substituting that particular missing variable. Or you can interpolate the data. If it is an income data, then average is of course one thing that we often use, but you can also interpolate and put it over there. Whatever interpolation comes, you can substitute that in the form of missing. So these are some of the ways to cope with the missing. So columns, align, measure. So we'll go to the measure. Measure, in name, you have two measures like ordinal and nominal. So what do you think should I put over here? Should I put ordinal measure? Name is a ordinal measure or name is a nominal measure? Anyone who can tell me this?
Nominal.
Nominal. Okay, great. Fine. So age, scale, ordinal, nominal.
Sir, it would be ordinal.
When we absolute age, when you take age in absolute number, then it is nominal.
Okay. Absolute number, suppose it is 32 years, 50 years, 60 years. So it has to be nominal. That's what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Anybody else who would like to respond? Okay. So let's go back to this one. Choice. What do you think so here? What should be entered? Okay, so I think we need to go back to the questionnaire. Let me clarify a bit of things over here, and then I'll go back again to SPSS. Let's take gender, for example, right? So I have coded 0 as female and 1 as male. And if I ask the question, is 1 greater than 0? What will be your answer?
It should be ordinal.
Yeah. So if I ask is one greater than 0? Yeah.
It's correct.
Categorical.
Mm.
I mean, neither 1 is greater than 0 nor it is less than 0.
Okay. So 1 is not greater than 0. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
No.
Yeah. But numerically 1 is greater than 0. But here you refuse to accept the fact that 1 is greater than 0 because male and female are the two categories and they are not either above or below, right?
Yes.
So if you have a data like this, where there is no ordering, you cannot actually say that one is greater than the other. They are just the categories explained. These kind of data is called nominal data, right? So the nature of the nominal data will be such. So gender is a nominal data, occupation, 1, 2, 3. So if I ask, is 3 greater than 2 or is 2 greater than 1? What will be the answer? Again, no, 3 is not greater than 2. 2 is not greater than 1. These are the three categories. How can we say business is greater than service or service is greater than agriculture? We cannot say that.
Yes.
Is that clear? So occupation again is going to be a nominal data. Is that clear?
Okay.
Okay, so let's come to choice now. The question number 6, if you can see. Now here, if I ask you the question, is 2 greater than 1? What will be your response?
Ordinal, sir.
I mean, let's settle down to the answer. So is your response going to be the same? Is 2 greater than 1? Can you say no, 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 2 is not greater than 1?
No, sir. In this
Later.
case, 2 greater than 1. It is
2
correct.
is greater than 1, of course, yes. Is 3 greater than 2? Yes.
Yes, sir. 3 is
Is
greater
4
than
greater?
2.
Yeah,
4
is 4 greater than 3?
3.
Yes,
And 5
is greater than 4.
4.
Fantastic. So here, the nature of the variable is very different, right? It's not like gender and occupation, where 3 is not greater than 2. Here, 2 is greater than 1, 3 is greater than 2, 4 is greater than 3, and 5 is greater than 4. So there is an ordering over here, right? So the order goes from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 is the highest and 1 is the lowest. So that's why this kind of variable will be called ordinal variable. Is that okay? All right. So I'm adding one more question here. If 2 is greater than 1 in this question number 6, if 2 is greater than 1, then can you tell me by how much 2 is greater than 1?
1.
3 is greater than 2 by how much?
No, sir. It cannot be specified.
Ah, fantastic. Tell me why it cannot be specified.
Because the degree the degree that we choose is not vary from person to person.
Yeah,
And not that
fantastic.
is it is based on the research objective.
Fantastic. So it depends on the respondent, the perception of the respondent, and every respondent is different. Their choices are different. Their scale of measurement of choices are different. So anything which is extremely good for you may be, somewhat good for me, not extremely good for me, right? Or even bad for me, because the choices are so different. Individuals are so different. And therefore, numerically, 2 is greater than 1 by 1, 3 is greater than 2 by 1, and 4 is greater than 3 by 1, and 5 is greater than 4 by 1, but it is not in actuality. It is difficult to say that 2 is greater than 1, or the difference between I have no choice and I have little choice is the same as the difference between I am neutral and I have little choice is the same between I have good choice and I am neutral, and is the same between I have greater choice and I have good choice. This is a very heroic assumption. Don't you think so? If you think that they are all the same, this is a very heroic assumption. And that is the limitation of Likert scale, because it is based on such a very, very, very ambiguous assumption, which is not practically possible. And that is why people are using actually a lot of other scales, like Gutman's scale is developed, Thornton scale is developed. Now we are using 8 scale for 1 to 8. Then we are measuring 1 to 10. So 1 to 10 is considered as a very good scale, because 1 to 10 also give you idea about the net promoter score. Have you heard about this term? No. Net promoter score? Anyone? So I'll just give you the idea: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, let's say. So you have used this scale. It is so wonderful, I'll just give you a simple idea about how it works. So you have used a scale of 1 to 10. Now, if you're talking about a product, let's say, then if somebody is actually giving any rating which is between 1 to 6, let's say, somebody is giving you rating between 1 to 6, and then someone is giving you rating between 7, 8, and then somebody is giving you rating 9, 10, let's say. So you divide broadly into 3 categories of people. So the chances are that anyone who is giving you rating from 1 to 6 is not going to speak well about your product. Whenever there is a chance, this person will speak against your product. He will have lots of grievances of your product. And if he's giving 7 and 8, in the first place, he will not talk about the product. He will remain neutral. But in case he talks about your product, he will talk positively about your product, not negatively, right? And one who is giving you 9 and 10, this is very clear that this person will always speak positively, and he will be the first to speak about the product, right? So how do you calculate the overall impact on your product? Then you take the number of respondents who have given you 9, 10. If there are 100 respondents, out of that 30 have given you 9, 10. So 30 is your numerator. And then you divide it by the number of people who have actually given you 1 to 6. So suppose 50 people have given you 1 to 6. So 30 divided by 50. Sometimes, the number of people who give 7 and 8 also added into denominator. So in order to make it more robust. And then you get certain percentage. If your percentage is positive, that means your product is sellable. If your percentage is negative, your product is not sellable. That's a very simple way to calculate the efficacy of response. Now, this is this kind of NPR calculation, Net Promoter Score calculation, is very useful in HR research, the human resource management research. Suppose as a colleague, you or as a co-worker, you give rating to each other, like peer rating, right? So when you're using the peer rating and somebody rates you on 1 to 10, how good this person is as a colleague? Do you think that he's a great colleague? And then rate from 1 to 10. How do you think about your friend or your colleague or co-worker or your boss, right? And then you have given a peer feedback. Now the question is that if you have collected it from 40, 50 people, then how do you understand the effectiveness of this person as a colleague, or how strong he is with the coworker? So calculate the NPR, right? So anyone who is giving you 1 to 6 rating is going to speak against you, and he's not happy with you, right? If he has to speak, he will speak negatively about you. And if somebody has given you 9, 10, this is the person who is going to speak positively about you all the time, right? And 7 and 8, those who have given you 7 and 8, these are the people who will not speak about you in the first place. But if they have to speak, they will speak positively. They will never speak negatively about you, right? So look at this, beauty of this scale 1 to 10. So in studies like where you have to extract the nuances of the choices of the consumer or the respondent, 1 to 10 makes a lot of sense to use instead of using the Likert scale. The Likert scale is based on a lot of limitations. So 1 to 10 is also used in studies like happiness measurement, or anything which is very sensitive, which is not amenable to measurement, or apparently it looks like it cannot be measured, where you can use 1 to 10. And there is also a scale that is developed, which is called the Flexiscale. Now, the Flexiscale actually is used by international agencies, some of the international agencies. And I wish I had the opportunity to show you that Flexiscale, how it works. So what happens in Flexiscale is that the scale is 1 to 10, of course, but the scale is not fixed by the researcher, it's fixed by the respondent. So, if suppose one respondent has to say that, I'm not very happy, or this product is not very good, then he has the choice whether he is like to fix it at 3 or he is like to fix it at 6, right? So he will have the choice to fix it. So the meaning of I know I have no choice, the meaning of I have good choice, and the meaning of I have great choice is determined by the respondent, not by the enumerator, right? So as a researcher, you are not determining that. It is the respondent who is determining what means to be a great choice. Does it mean 9? Does it mean 7? Does it mean 6 to him? Or does it mean 10 to him? Right? So that's kind of Flexiscale is used. So here,
Sir, I want to ask a question regarding this Flexiscale. As you have said that the strength is going to be decided by the respondent. He will decide that 3 is best or good or neutral. So in that case, sir, what would happen when the other numerous respondents will give answer to the same question? So how will do the analysis, because there are chances that different participants or different respondents decide different number for their choice. So how we will go ahead about it? How the researcher would know that 3 is some decision has to be taken, right? So 3 number पे क्या है वो हम कैसे decide करें?
Yeah.
As a researcher.
Okay, good. So the scale also has written these kind of wordings, like I have no choice, I have little choice. The scale is like this, right? So the scale, sorry, if I'm able to show my hands. Can you see my hands? So the scale is like this. There are scales given over here, and which is flexi or moves actually. So and it's written, I have no choice, I have little choice, I'm neutral. So the respondent will pick up a scale and fix it somewhere, right? So when he drags the scale of I have great choice and fix it at 7, let's say. So that means that for this respondent, 7 is I have great choice. So something of this sort. Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, Dr. Dipti, I wish I had more opportunity to talk about those scales and to show you how this scale actually is implemented. Anyway, so 2 is greater than 1. So that's the nature of ordinal scale. But now let's come to age. So if I ask the first respondent, he said my age is 34, And I asked the second respondent, he said my age is 35. And here I'm asking you the same question. Is 35 greater than 34? Answer is yes. And you know it very well. And if I ask the second question, is by how much 35 is greater than 34? Then you are also able to say very, confirmately that it is greater by 1, right? So if the third person's age is 50, so is 50 greater than 35? Yes. By how much? 15 years. And there is no doubt on that, right? It's not like is 2 greater than 1 here in the question number 6. And by how much? We don't know, right? So by how much we don't know here. But here we know. So if the nature of the variable is this, then it is called the quantitative variable. Quantitative variables are like this. The ratio scale is also like this. It's variously described. So these are the continuous variable. It's also known as continuous variable. So here, both the answer to both the questions are very clear. But here, the respondents actually knows that I have little choice is greater than I have no choice, but the respondent does not know by how much. So it's like looking at the two different peaks of mountain from a distance. And when you look at them, you can make out which peak is higher and which peak is lower. And that is a valid response because you can see them. But you don't know, what you don't know is that by how much the first peak is greater than the second peak. So that is the nature of it. So when I go back now, so if I say name is of course the nominal variable, age is a scale variable, gender is a nominal variable, occupation is a nominal variable, income is a scale variable, and choice is an ordinal variable. Is that clear? Choice is an ordinal variable. Okay, now we go back to the data. And here you see all these names, age, gender, occupation, income, choices, everything is appearing over here, right? So, and if you put the cursor over here, it will give you the details also, which you have written in the label. Now your job is to enter the names, enter the data from the questionnaire. So you pick up questionnaire number 1. So that becomes case 1. What is the name of the respondent? And then you say, okay, the name of the respondent is Deepthi. What is her age? Sorry, Deepthi, I'm just guessing. So I'm not going to ask your age, but I'm just guessing maybe, 30. Gender, so you have 0, right? Occupation. So when I have written 0, it's already taken female. So you see, because of the labeling that we have done, right? Occupation, let's say 2, and income, let's say 50,000, and the choice is 4, right? So this is how, I have put the information over here. So 4 means very much. So it's already reflected over there. So there is a button over here, A and 1. So if you click that, you have the data which you have filled in. Deepthi is 30 years age, and 0 to 50,000 and 4. But if you click it again, it goes back. So Deepthi is 30 years age. She's a female. She's into service. Her income is 50,000 per month, and she likes the product very much. So something of this sort. So this is how the entry has to be done, right? So you have the entry as many as your respondents, and that's how in SPSS you do the entry. Now I'll also give you some idea about how you import the data, because there are many data which is kept in the Excel sheet. Say, for example, if I show you one data, of course, which I'm going to use in the analysis also. So if I show you this data, probably, there are many data over here in this sheet. And if I have to import the data, let's say this data I want to import, this entire data I want to import, then I'll have to check for the range of the data which I want to import. It's not necessary that you have to import everything that is there in the Excel. So I have to find out the range of the data. So the data starts from E3, and I'm also taking the name of the variable into account. The data actually starts from E4, but I also want to import the variable name along with it. So the data starts from E3 and the data ends at here, which is G24. So I'll have to close this sheet and go back to SPSS panel, and then we'll say open the data. I'll have to locate my data. Where is that? So this data is kept at the desktop. In this folder, and then I'll say, okay, show me the Excel data. And this was the Excel where the data was kept. So if I click that, this Excel had 3 sheets, and my data was in first sheet. So I'm importing from the first sheet. I have to specify the range. So the range we have identified was E3, and then you have to put the column G24. So what I'm saying is that there are many data over here, but import the data from E3 to G24. And then we'll say, okay. The moment we'll say, okay, everything is over here. The data is already imported. So here is the name of the firm, IMP, EXP. We are going to use this data later. And then you can see here, the name of the variable is already written because we have also imported the name of the variable. So is that clear to all of you? This is the initial introduction of how you create the data in your Excel. Now we go to understand the...
Sir,
yes.
excuse me, sir.
Yeah, please.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes,
Sir,
yes, yes.
I want to know, sir, what is the usage of width in the previous sheet where we have given the labels and
let me go to that.
yes,
This
sir.
one you want to say?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Width. What is the use of this width?
Yeah, width is about the character that you would like to use in the variable name. Say, for example, if there are 8 width you have taken and the character is less than 8, that is 4, so it will actually go up to 8, and you can increase that. Say, for example, if I put the width less than 4, let's say 3. Let's say 3, what will happen? Let me see. So it's not affecting it here. If I keep the width 0, let's say, so it cannot be less than, it's not affecting, I don't know. But width is about this fact, that what is the character that you are using. Or probably it is the, okay, it works here, you see here. So if I said 1, width 1, then name you can enter is only one character, right? D.
Okay.
And you can see the whole dipty is gone, right? So if I increase it to 2, it's not about the variable, sorry. So it's about so I cannot write more than 2 letters.
2
right?
letters.
2 characters.
Fine.
So something of this. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
Fine. So we open the data for regression analysis. So we are going for a simple regression analysis. So the data I'm using is polishing time regression. So I've just clicked on the polishing time regression data and said open, because it's already in the SPSS format. So I'm not importing it from. So this is the data in front of us. So let's understand the data first. It's a data about different manufacturing items like bowl, casserole, dishes, tray, plate. These are the different types of the product. And this is the diameter, the data of the diameter of the product. And these are the time for policing, which is going into the policing for these kind of products. And these are the prices at which it is sold. So here the simple regression we are going to establish is between time and the diameter. So our problem here is that we want to predict the policing time in order to hire people. So how many people should I hire will depend upon what is the policing time that it will take. So I want to understand what is the extent of relationship between time and the diameter, and how diameter determines the time policing time. And based on that, the kind of product I'm going to make, I'll hire people. So something of this sort. This is a problem at hand. So let me just go through this one. So kind of regression that I'm using is this. So we are using y is equal to beta 0, beta 1, x, right? So these are variously expressed, like you can use a, b, in different kind of textbooks, you can see something else as well. So y is the dependent variable here, and this is the intercept of the equation, and this is the slope of the equation. Beta 1 is the slope of the equation, and x1 is the independent variable. So here in our case, independent variable, because we want to establish the relationship between the time and the diameter, and we say the time depends on the diameter. So diameter is our independent variable and time is our dependent. So we want to model the time based on diameter. So the value of y will be derived from the time data, and value for x will be derived from the diameter data. So that's what we are talking about. But if we express this equation like this will be called mathematical equation, which this is not the equation we are actually estimating. What we are estimating is called the statistical equation or statistical model. So these two models are different. Mathematical model is called the exact model, right? And statistical model is called inexact model. So what we are measuring is inexact model. So in order to convert this model into statistical model, we have to add this plus E. E means the error, or sometimes it's also called the random term. It's also variously described in various textbooks. So E is the random term. So what does this mean? This means that we are saying that time, that is y, is determined by x, which is diameter. But x is not the only factor which determines the time. There are some other factors which we don't know and we have not accounted for in the equation. So, this part of the equation from beta 0 to beta 1, beta 0 plus beta 1 x, this part of the equation is the model formulation that we have done based on our understanding. But we are still not very sure because we are dealing with social science data. So there can be some other things that may be affecting y. So we are putting that in the form of E. So this means the total impact which will come on y will come from two sources. One source is the regression source, which is comprised of beta 0 plus beta 1 xi, and other is going to come from the error source, which is comprised of E. And when we do this, it becomes a statistical model, right? And this is the basic functional form that we are trying to establish here. So we go back to our data. With this, we go to analyze, we go to regression, we go to linear regression. So we are trying out the linear regression first. So there are many forms of linear regression. It can be quadratic, it can be logarithmic, it can be semi-logarithmic. So we'll talk about those somewhat in a while, but first we are going to establish the linear regression. So here they're asking, which is your dependent variable? So our dependent variable is time, because we want to model the time. And which is your independent variable? Says, okay, diameter is my independent variable. And there are several buttons you can see over here. So by default, even if you don't check out those buttons, by default, the SPSS will actually check in all those important boxes which you need. But in order to show you, you can see by default, they have checked the estimates, they have checked the model fit. So we'll be talking about the model fit here. But if you have multi-regression analysis, then you can go for the collinearity diagnostics as well. A lot of other things are here. So we'll say, okay, we don't need to check anything else. Then plotting and then saving. So we are not going to that. We'll go by them one by one. So we just want to first interpret the result, understand the equation, and then move forward. So the first table that it gives us is called the model summary. And in model summary, you can see that the value of R is 0.770. So value of R is actually the value of correlation between the two variables. So if you calculate the simple correlation between the two variables, you will get 0.7 as the correlation. Then we have the second one is called the R square. So R square means R multiplied by R. So that makes it R square. So R square value is 0.49. And then there is adjusted R square, which is 0.482. So in simple regression, we do not actually use adjusted R square. We use R square. And in multiple regression, we will use adjusted R square. What is the reasoning behind it? So we'll understand that in a while. First, we'll understand what is this R square is all about. So where from this R square has come. So if you can see, this calculations. Is it visible to all of you? Sorry.
Yes, sir, visible.
Wait a minute here. Yeah, so now this should be visible, right? Okay. Not so much. Yeah. So here, if you look at the equation now, this should be clearly visible to all of you. So here, the equation is like this. So we say that the total sum of a square that the regression process or ANOVA process generates is the total effect that we can actually discern for the independent variable, a dependent variable. And then it is coming from two different sources, as we discussed. One is called the regression sum of a square. That means the part which is coming from regression. And then it is called the error sum of a square, ESS, which actually comes from the error. So in fact, if you add this RSS with ESS, it should be equal to the TSS, the total sum of square. That means the total effect on Y has to come from either regression or the error. So TSS is equal to RSS plus ESS. So if you divide both sides, that TSS divided by TSS, RSS divided by TSS, and ESS divided by TSS, on both sides, if you divide by TSS, then what you get is this. So this becomes 1, and 1 is equal to the ratio of explanation that comes from the regression out of the total explanation, and the ratio of explanation that comes from the error out of the total explanation, right? So these are the two ratios that we are talking about. So the first ratio is called the R square. So R square, actually, conceptually, what it means is that R square explains what is the percentage of change in dependent variable which is explained on the basis of the regression. That is what R square stands for. And that's why it is also known as coefficient of determination. So why it is called the coefficient of determination? Because what is the proportion which is determined on the basis of proportion of explanation, which is determined on the basis of regression. Similarly, ESS by TSS is 1 minus R square is called coefficient of non-determination. That means what is the proportion which cannot be determined on the basis of regression. So that means it comes from E. So obviously, when we talk about the model fit or making any sense out of the regression, what we mean is as follows. We mean that if more explanation come from the regression, then the regression is good. And if more explanation is coming from error, the regression is not very good. So model fit requires that your R square should be slightly higher, or should be pretty higher. So, and higher R square is always good. So in your equation here, which we have derived from the data, here is the calculation. So I'll show you the calculations in a while. First, we go back to, let's say, we go back to the data first, the equation that we have got, and then we'll be able to. So here your R square is 0.49. And if you look at the ANOVA table, you have the sum of square, SS, over here, and then the sum of square, which is resulting from the regression, the sum of square, which is resulting from the residual, that is error, right? So here you see that the RSS, that is regression sum of square, is equal to 10287.173. That's the figure you can check. And the error sum of square is 10687.511. And the total sum of square, that is TSS, is 20974.684. And if this is the calculation, then this calculation is actually put in over here. And you can see that in this calculation, you have the R squared divided by the so I think the figure somewhat put over here is not correct, but if you calculate that, you will get 0.49, which is R square, right? And 0.51, which you're going to get is the part that is 1 minus R square. So if you go back and see here, so if you divide 10287.173 divided by 20974.684, you will get 4.49. So that's how the calculation goes, right? So this is the concept of R square, right? So when we go for ANOVA, so we have the degree of freedom given over here, and then we have the mean square values over here. The F is calculated. So ANOVA is about the F test. So, and there is something called significance over here, which is 0.00000. So how this mean square is calculated is that you have the sum square divided by the degree of freedom. So 10287.173 divided by 1 is the same figure you get over here. 10687.511 divided by 57, you get 187.5 over here. So that's how the mean square is calculated. And how the F is calculated is 10287.173 divided by 187.5 will give you 54.865. That is the value of F. So here the question is, what is this F test is all about? ANOVA table, how do we use ANOVA table in our regression analysis? So F test, here the hypothesis that we are trying to test is that at least one of the variable in the regression equation is significant. That means the regression is usable. So the first thing that we determine is that whether the regression is usable or not usable. So you have the independent variables, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, several, and then out of that, if none of them are actually significant, then your F test will not turn out to be significant. And if your F test is significant, this means at least one of these variables are going to be significant, right? So F test is just to help you out with the first step in understanding whether the regression is usable or not usable. Should we go ahead with the regression, or we should not go ahead with the regression? The value of significance should not be more than 0.05. So in that case, what you're measuring over here is that you're measuring the level of significance at 5%, right? So in effect, this significance value is a p-value which is given to you. P-value is the probability value, and probability value is defined as, or probability value can be looked at as the probability that if you change the sample, from the current sample, then what is the probability that you will not get the same result? And if that probability is less than 5%, that is acceptable, and you reject the null hypothesis. So in the inferential statistics, that's how you test your hypothesis, right? Because we are working on a sample data, and one of the purpose of research is to explain the population or derive results for the entire population based on the evidence that you have gathered from the sample data, right? So if suppose the sample data changes, then what will happen? Will you get the same result or you will not get the same? So here is the question of reliability. So if the reliability of sample data is not there, if the validity of the sample data is not there, then you cannot actually accept the result for the population. You cannot say this result may be specific to the sample but may not be directly applicable to the population. And that's why we go for the inferential statistics, which is based on the p-value. So if the p-value is 0.05 and less, this means that you have a valid and reliable inferences. This means you can actually take it as significant. So significant means that you're rejecting the null hypothesis, you're accepting the alternative hypothesis. That's how it measures. So ANOVA table is all about that. Yeah, is there any question from model, summary, and ANOVA?
Yes, sir. How do we determine and interpret the degree of freedom? In this table, ANOVA table, for regression, degree of freedom is assumed to be 1, and for residual value, it is 57. From where this figure comes from, and how do we interpret and determine the same?
Okay, so it comes from regression means it depends on the number of variable minus 1. So you have the number of variable, two variables, one is dependent, one another is independent, so 2 minus 1 is 1. That's how it is calculated. Second, residual is number of responses. So how many responses you have, so that is minus 1. So if total responses are 58, so 58 minus 1 is 57 is your entire residual degree of freedom. But that's not the point. The point is, what is the degree of freedom all about? Why the degree of freedom is needed? Any response? All right, so what happens is that we're dealing with the quantitative data. Regression can be applicable only on quantitative data, right? You cannot run regression on a categorical data. So it has to be the two set of data, one dependent, one other independent, with cause and effect relationship underlying it, and they have to be a quantitative data, that is scale data, right? And for any scale data or quantitative data, the assumption is that the data is normally distributed. I hope all of you understand the normal distribution. So normally distributed, that is the basic assumption. So if the data is not normally distributed, then it creates a lot of aberrations. It creates a lot of problem in the regression, and the result may not be very good enough to be used for predictions, because one of the purpose of regression is to predict, and predictions may go wrong if the data is not normally distributed. It will be affected by many the kind of lopsidedness the data will represent. Therefore, and what happens to the normality of distribution of the data is that if you have more constraints to work with, then there will be less chances of achieving the normal distribution, right? Say, for example, if you are given with 5,000 rupees and you have to distribute it among 5 people, and then how do you achieve the normality of distribution? So you actually start distributing to the first person, second person, third person, fourth person, and you lost your choice of distribution or freedom of distribution with the fifth person, because the total has to be 5,000. So if suppose you have distributed 4,000 to 4 people, and then you have to give 1,000 to the fifth people because the total is given. So that is one constraint you are working with. So if there is one constraint, then you lost 1 degree of freedom over there, right? Then suppose if I increase the constraint, so I will say that, okay, you distribute 5,000 in such a way that the standard deviation should not exceed 2. Then what will happen? You have another constraint in the distribution, right? So you will have to also fulfill this requirement. So the more the constraint that you start working with, the lesser the degree of freedom you will have. And therefore, degree of freedom is a kind of statistical compensation given to you for your inability to achieve the normal distribution. That's a simple way of looking at degree of freedom. If you want, you can write it down. So I'm just repeating it again. Degree of freedom is a kind of statistical compensation. Degree of freedom is a kind of a statistical compensation given for our inability to achieve normal distribution with several constraints. All right, so I hope this makes a little bit things clear. So shall we go to coefficient now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So now when we go to coefficient, you have
excuse me, sir. Sir, we have one query from Surajit, sir. He wants to ask that can we check normality and reliability of the data first? Surajit, sir, are you here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, sure. So that is the first thing, because before you do the regression, you just check the reliability and normality distribution of the data. So even in the regression, there is an option that you can check the normality of the data. I can show you that. So it is a good idea to check the normality distribution of the data. We'll discuss what happens if the data is not normal distribution, what affects the data's normality. So these kind of issues will come in the course of our discussion. So shall we move to coefficient now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, all right. So in coefficient, you can see there is a value given for constant, there is a value given for diameter. So here the B is beta value. So here the constant means beta 0 value. The beta 0 value is minus 1.955 and beta 1 value is 3.457. And these are the standard errors. But the problem here is that there is something called unstandardized coefficient. And there is also beta reported here, which is 0.7, which is called the standardized coefficient. And then there are t value, and then there is a significance. So, we'll have to go for the t-test. But before we go for the t-test, how do we do that? Is anyone throw some light on which beta we should use? Is it the unstandardized coefficient we should use, or should we use the standardized coefficient?
The standardized coefficient.
Standardized coefficient, okay. In fact, the answer is the other way around. We should not use a standardized coefficient. We should use unstandardized coefficient.
Sorry, sir.
Yeah. No. I mean, you don't have to be sorry. It's actually a matter of talk and discussion. So, no problem. So standardized. So we have to understand the difference between how the standardized is calculated, how the unstandardized is calculated. So if you can note down the beta of a standardized coefficient, which is 0.700. So just note down for your reference, and I'll show you how it is calculated. So I'm going to first the conversion of the data into standardized score. So we have the time, we have the diameter, and I'm checking this box which says save a standardized value as a variable. So that means I'm going for converting the time and diameter, the two variables, into a standardized score, right? So, and I'm saying, okay. And if I go and check my original data, you will see here, there are two columns added already. It's called Z time and Z diameter. So these are the Z scores. So all the data of time and diameter have been converted into a Z score. And Z score, when you convert the data into Z score, is called a standardized score. Why? Because Z score has a perfect normal distribution, right? And with a mathematical property of mean is equal to 0 and standard deviation is equal to 1. So if you convert the data into a standardized score, that is Z score, you will always get the standard deviation which is equal to 1. So your standard deviation is fixed, your mean is 0. So this means it will give you the perfect normal distribution, right? And now on the basis of this Z score, if you calculate the regression, which has a perfect normal distribution. So we go to regression, reset, and I'm going to take Z score and Z score on both the sides. So what should be the beta value if I calculate this? The beta value should be 0.7, right? So if I say, okay, and try and see what is the beta value I have got. And you can see here, the beta value I have got is 0.7 and here 0.7. Standardized coefficient 0.7, understand is also 0.7. So now this makes it very easy for you to understand that a standardized beta is calculated on the basis of Z-score, right? Now question is that, why should we not use a standardized coefficient which is based on Z-score when it has perfect symmetrical distribution? The answer is that, it's a robust beta, but you cannot actually predict on the basis of this beta, right? The prediction has to be on the basis of unstandardized, because unstandardized beta is the real scenario beta, and standardized is a converted beta, and therefore it may not give you the right predictions, and that's why we do not use standardized beta. Now, when do we use the standardized score, Z-score? Should we use it or should we not use it? So one of the classic case of using Z-score conversion is when you have multiple regression, and in multiple regression you have different variables with different kind of a scale of measurement. For example, there is income as independent variable, then you have the kilometer as independent variable, then you have the like kg measurement, weight in kg, kilogram, as another variable. So you have a different scale of measurement as dependent variable. Then comparing them in the simple regression equation is not possible, because the measurement scale is very different across all the variables, right? It's not similar, and that's why it is advisable that you convert them into Z-score. It becomes comparable, and then you can run the regression. So that way you can use that regression. Otherwise, always we should use the unstandardized regression. Is that clear? Is that clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, great. So how do we do the beta testing? The beta testing is important because in the first place, whether this beta is just by chance or it is significant, statistically significant. We'll have to check that. Just by chance means that your beta is equal to 0. That's your null hypothesis, right? So your beta 2 is equal to 0 is your null hypothesis. Beta 1 is equal to 0 is your null hypothesis, and beta 1 is not equal to 0 is your alternative hypothesis. So first you have to ascertain to reject the null hypothesis. Unless you reject the null hypothesis that beta 1 is not equal to 0, your regression is not going to make much sense. Why? Because if you accept the null hypothesis that beta 1 is equal to 0, this means that if you change your sample from one to another, you will not get the same beta, right? And therefore, how do we test that? So you look at the t and you check the significance. So the beta significance over here is less than 0.05. So this means you have almost negligible probability that if you change the sample, your beta will change, right? So because your significant, that is p-value, is 0.000, right? So this means that you have negligible probability. So until this probability is up to 5%, 5% will reject the null hypothesis. If it is more than 5%, will not reject the null hypothesis, will accept the null hypothesis. So if I go back to my slides to show you this here. So I'm focusing on how you look at the hypothesis. So this is the equation that we got. Time is equal to 5.845 minus 0.142 diameter. So this is how we. So null hypothesis is beta 1 is equal to 0. Alternative is beta 1 is not equal to 0. And what we have to do is to reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternative that beta 1 is a significant beta. So when we say beta 1 is a significant beta, this means that even if you change the sample, you will not get the different beta. You will get the similar beta. And what is the probability that you will get the similar beta? It's almost very high, 99% or even more. very little probability is there that it will not be the same beta. And that's why we are rejecting the null hypothesis. Now, what is the genesis of this null hypothesis? That also you should understand. So, if suppose there was no regression available for any such predictions, but now we have the inferential statistics, we have the regression analysis, so we do that. So if suppose there was no regression available, then what was our best bet or best probability of predicting? So that was called the mean model. So we used to predict on the basis of mean model. Mean model means that whatever is the stochastic value of x, the y will be actually converging at its mean or average value, right? The y will always go back to the average value. So that is called the mean model. And if that is true in the mean model, then your y regression equation is going to be a straight line. And if it is a straight line across the value of x, that means your beta is going to be equal to 0 because slope is going to be equal to 0. Is that clear to all of you? So this means in the mean model, where regression is not used, the beta is always going to be equal to 0, right? So the alternative model of regression should produce something which is different from the mean model. And if the alternative regression is not producing something which is different from the mean model, there's no point in using regression, right? Why should we use regression if it is giving us the same mean model, right? So if the regression is giving you some line which is either going up, coming down, is not the straight line, that means the beta is going to be different from 0, right? In any case, in two-tail analysis, the beta is going to be different from 0, right? So this means the alternative model is based on this whole idea of doing something different from the mean model, right? So now again,
excuse
yes.
me.
Yeah.
Sir, again, one of our participant, Divya Shukla, she wants to ask that how you have calculated Z value earlier.
Oh, okay. So I'll go back again. So I'll go to analyze. I'll go to descriptive statistics. Then I'll go to descriptive button. And there is a button over here which says save standardized values as variable. So all you have to do is to check this. So I have checked this and have kept which variable I want to convert. And then I said just OK, and it gave me the value. So you can see here, again, it has calculated. Is that clear? Okay, so let me also show you the property of Z, because it's already 11:30, right? It's going to be 11:30. Yes, so we'll take a break, but I'll just show you the description of how. So we go to, let's say, descriptive, we go to options, and then we say, okay, give me some mean value and standard deviation, right? And then I'm saying, okay, fine, not this one. Not this one. Give me the mean value of Z score. Mean and standard value of Z score. So I'm calculating mean and standard value of Z score. Is that clear? So I'm saying, okay. And when you look at the mean and standard value, you see mean value is 0. And standard deviation is 1 of both the series. So that's the mathematical property of Z score. So if you plot this as a normal histogram, you will see that Z score will give you a perfect bell-shaped curve, right? So that's the property of Z score. Is that clear? All right. So shall we take a break here?
Yes, sir. Sure.
So and we are returning by what time?
Sir, we can have a break of 15 minutes. 15 minutes.
All right. No problem. So I'll keep on logging, but I'll just switch off my video.
Sure.
Okay.
So we'll get back here together at 11:45, sir, or 11:50.
Yeah. Okay. 11:45. Fine.
Okay, sir. Okay. So participants, there is a small break here, and we get back here together at 11:45. Thank you so much. Feedback link. is already floated on the WhatsApp group for session 1. So kindly fill the feedback form within the half an hour. Otherwise, the link will get closed after half an hour.